Hey, I've got some horrifying stories from Reddit for you. Strange, unsettling ones that might stick with you longer than you think. If you're into that kind of thing, consider subscribing. Let's get into it. I had a disturbing conversation with my 7-year-old daughter. Dad, I saw a zombie. I was in the kitchen making tea when my little girl came rushing in. She ran through the back door so fast, she almost tripped up the step. I poured boiling water from the kettle into a mug, hardly looking up. Oh yeah, I did. Its face was all pale and messed up. It was gross, Dad. I put the kettle back and picked up the milk. Sighed inwardly. I really had to be more careful about what I watched on TV in the evening. Rosie has a habit of sneaking downstairs in the night, and last week she caught me watching The Walking Dead, of all things. She's had zombies on the brain ever since. I keep telling her they're not real, but it doesn't seem to make a difference. Sweetheart, what did we say about zombies? I scooped the tea bag out of the mug and dumped it in the bin. You know, if you keep talking about them, Daddy's going to get in trouble with Mummy again. Yeah, but I saw one. I know, darling, but I already checked the back garden twice yesterday. And I can promise you it's a zombie-free zone. No, not in the back garden. I didn't see it in the back garden. I had the mug half raised to my lips. But now I put it down again. I turned to look at Rosie. Her hair was windswept and her little cheeks were red, as if she'd been running. Sweetheart, I put on my best stern, Dad's not happy voice. I'm going to ask you a question, and I want you to be honest with me. Have you been playing along the path out back again? I didn't really need to ask the question, because I already knew the answer. Rosie is allowed to play in the garden on her own, and sometimes, if she asks us permission first, we let her ride her bike along the path at the back of our house. The one that runs past all the neighbors' back gardens. But that's all we allow her to do. This area is pretty safe, but these days you can never be too careful. There was a burglary a couple of roads over a few months back, and last year someone was mugged on the high street. Several years ago, a few towns over, a little boy even went missing. That was quite a long way away from here, of course, but it made national news for a few days until the search fizzled out, and it made a lot of parents more cautious. Rosie's getting older now, and she's an adventurous girl, but still, you have to have boundaries. And on a few occasions lately, Rosie's been crossing those boundaries, riding her bike further than she should, not coming in straight away when we call her, sneaking out the back gate when she's only meant to be playing in the garden. As I watched Rosie now, I noticed her face growing redder. She looked away from me, down at the kitchen floor, and scuffed her feet. Dad, I only went a little way down, she said. I promise. I was chatting to Mr. Henderson because I saw him in his back garden. I said hello and made him jump. I sighed, so there it was. Mr. Henderson was Rosie's zombie. Yesterday it was the postman, and the day before that it was a different neighbor. I took a sip of tea and shook my head. Mr. Henderson was, in fairness, a better candidate than the others. The guy lives on his own, and he looks about 100 years old. Moles all over his face. Skin like a deflated balloon. Whenever we chatted over the garden fence before, though, he'd always seemed nice enough. Just a bit lonely. I couldn't have Rosie going round calling him a zombie. Listen to me, sweetheart. I know you didn't go far or anything, but I don't want you. I came right back after too, Dad, Rosie interrupted. She was staring up at me now, blue eyes large and pleading. I promise, and I even said no when Mr. Henderson offered me an ice cream, because I know you don't like me taking stuff from strangers. I opened my mouth to respond, then paused. He offered you ice cream. Yeah, but I said no. Mr. Henderson really wanted me to come in and have one, but I told him I had to get home. And then I came straight back here to tell you I'd seen a zombie. And Rosie was babbling now, her voice whirring like a motor, but I'd stopped listening. My mind was still stuck on something she'd said a moment before. Mr. Henderson really wanted me to come in and have one. I took another sip of tea and frowned. That wasn't good. I didn't mind the neighbors chatting to my little girl, but I didn't like the thought of them inviting her in. Not without us there. Not even if they were just kind, lonely old men. I made up my mind to go round and visit Mr. Henderson later, and to tell him that myself kindly, of course, but firmly. In the end, though, I didn't get a chance, because a few moments after I'd had the thought, Rosie said something else. Something that pushed everything else from my mind and ended any idea I might have had about going over to Mr. Henderson's house. She said something that made me feel cold. Daddy, please don't stop me playing in the garden. I promise I won't sneak out again. I don't want the zombie to get me. Rosie, I'm not going to stop you playing in the garden, but you have to make me a couple of promises too. First, promise me you'll stop going round calling people zombies. Mr. Henderson might be old, but he's not one of the living dead. Rosie frowned. I didn't. What do you mean? What do you mean you didn't? You just ran in here a moment ago calling him one. No, I didn't. Mr. Henderson's not a zombie. I saw the zombie in his house, but it wasn't him. I frowned. I had the mug raised to my lips to take another sip of tea, but now I put it down again. What do you mean, sweetheart? You saw someone else in his house? Yeah, the zombie, Dad. I could see it pressed against his little basement window while I was talking to him. Cold fingers ran up my spine. What? Yeah, it was really scary. Its face was all bashed up and bloody, and its mouth was open, like it was screaming at me. But do you know what confused me most, Dad? I tried to keep my voice steady. What? Well, I didn't realize kids could be zombies, too. I thought it was only grown-ups, but I guess I must have been wrong, 'cause the one in Mr. Henderson's basement looked just like a little boy. My son's imaginary friend knew things he shouldn't. Now I think he was never imaginary. My son, Caleb, started talking to his imaginary friend, Mr. Maps, when he was 3. At first, it was harmless cute. He'd set an extra spot at dinner or pause to open doors for him. My wife and I laughed it off until Mr. Maps started knowing things. One night, I was putting Caleb to bed when he looked up and said, Daddy, Mr. Maps says not to drive to work tomorrow. He says there's going to be a big crash. I chuckled, gave him a kiss, and went downstairs. The next morning, I got a flat tire. Annoyed, I called in late and caught the news while waiting for a tow. There'd been a multi-car pileup on my usual route. 6 dead. I stared at the screen, my coffee turning cold in my hand. I didn't tell my wife. From then on, I paid closer attention. Caleb would drop little things. Mr. Maps says the neighbors are moving soon. The Johnsons had just finished renovating. Why would they move? 3 weeks later, they were gone overnight. For sale sign and everything. No goodbye. Mr. Maps says the cat's sick. Our cat, Pickles, was fine until 2 days later when she stopped eating and had to be put down. Still, I tried to rationalize it. Kids are perceptive. Maybe Caleb picked up on subtle things. Then things got darker. Caleb changed. He stopped wanting to play outside. He'd whisper to empty rooms. He'd wake up screaming. One night I found him sleepwalking, standing in the hallway, facing the wall. "What are you doing, buddy?" I asked, trying to stay calm. He turned, eyes wide and glassy. "Mr. Maps says you shouldn't go in the basement anymore." I hadn't mentioned the basement in weeks. I'd been using it to store old furniture, untouched since my dad passed and left me some of his things. I asked Caleb why. He just said, he doesn't like what's down there. Says it smells wrong. I did go down there. I wish I hadn't. At first, it was just musty. Then the smell hit me, rotting meat, something sour underneath. I searched every corner, and then I saw it. In the far corner, behind the water heater, the concrete floor looked wrong, discolored, cracked in a circular pattern, like something had been burned into it, then filled in. When I touched it, it felt warm. That night, I dreamed of fire, a room lit by red candles, my father chanting words I didn't recognize, a child screaming. I woke up drenched in sweat. The next morning, I called my mom. I asked if Dad ever messed with occult stuff. There was silence. Then she said, "Your father was a troubled man." There were things I chose not to see. I pressed, but she hung up. That night, Caleb came into our room shaking. He climbed into bed and whispered, "Mr. Maps says he tried to keep it away, but it's too late now. It's awake." That's when the banging started. From the basement, 3 thuds, then scratching. Then a low groaning noise that made my bones ache. I grabbed my bat and went down. The air was thick. The smell was worse than ever. And then the floor cracked open, only for a second. Just long enough for something wet and black to slither out and vanish into the shadows. I ran. We left that night, never went back. We didn't even take our things. Caleb doesn't talk about Mr. Maps anymore. Sometimes I hear him whisper at night, but when I ask, he says he's talking to the quiet man who keeps him safe. But sometimes, just sometimes, I think I see shadows in the corners of our new house. Long ones. And last week, Caleb looked up at me and asked, "Daddy, what did you do to make Mr. Maps so angry?" I didn't answer, because I don't know, but I'm afraid I'm about to find out. My mother used to tell me that my father was an angel. I thought she was crazy until I saw him myself. I don't remember my mother ever being sane. From the very moment I was born, the house I lived in was filled with her madness. The tattered curtains that were never washed, the constantly running TV with all sorts of religious broadcasts, the silence that followed her nightly sobbing. But most of all, I was terrified of the icon of the Virgin Mary cracked in places, and I swear, I felt her watching me. My mother always smelled of alcohol from early morning till late at night. I never saw my father, and whenever I asked about him, she answered with absolute certainty that my father was an angel, not in the sense of being a good man, but literally a real angel. She said it with wide open, yet utterly empty and lifeless eyes. A cigarette dangled from her cracked lips as she repeated, "Your father is an angel, Michael. A real angel." I believed her, maybe when I was 5. I was happy and rushed to tell my friends who my father was. The reaction was predictable. They mocked me and teased me for years. No matter how many times my mother repeated her story about my father, no matter how many religious channels she made me watch, I stopped believing her. In my teenage years, it got worse. I was hot-tempered, stubborn, and had a terrible relationship with my mother. I openly called her crazy and begged her to tell me the truth about my father. But instead, in one of her drunken episodes, she screamed that my father was an angel, holding a cracked rosary in her hand as if she could summon him from the heavens. He burned with light when he came to me. "And you," she would grab my face roughly, scratching my cheeks and chin with her nails. You carry his sacred blood. Eventually, I stopped listening to her at all, let alone speaking to her. At 18, I moved to another city and fulfilled my dream: to escape the rotting house with its perpetually yellow lighting and peeling walls, and my deranged mother. Because of her, people called me crazy, mocked me about my father, and openly insulted her, which often got me into fights. My only fond memory with her is of a day we went to the beach. She held my hand, and we simply watched the sea. Everything was fine until she looked up at the sky and said, "When will you come, my love?" After moving out, I worked hard, made new friends, real good friends. Whenever they asked about my family, I said I was an orphan. I even started drinking a little just to understand her, but not become her. I should note that I was a firm atheist, unlike my mother's fanatical religiosity. But I'm not writing to tell you how I ran away from home and my insane mother. I'm writing to tell you how I came back. After I moved out, I felt something watching me. I chalked it up to stress, even went to a psychologist, but that strange feeling never left, like something was protecting me. Once a car nearly hit me, but I managed to jump away just in time. Another time, I stopped walking without knowing why, and a second later, a massive branch fell from a tree that could have easily crushed my skull. One night, she left me 11 voice messages. Some were just sobs that turned into screams, others were drunken mumblings. But the last message, sent half an hour after the others, made my skin crawl. My mother's voice was low and barely audible, as if she were hiding somewhere. "He's coming for you, your father. He came specifically for you." I couldn't take my eyes off the phone. I couldn't even move. I had cut off all contact with her for a year. Maybe 2, I lost count. The next morning, I got a call from the hospital. They said my mother had been admitted to the psychiatric ward, and I barely held back laughter. Not because it was funny, it wasn't, but because it was inevitable. The nurse who called said, "We need you to come and collect her things." At the house, we found something strange. Very reluctantly, I returned to that same house, still reeking of damp wood and despair, just like before. Her belongings were packed into a clear plastic container. There were old photographs where she was still young and beautiful, smiling sincerely. A smile I never saw on her again. There were other items, but 2 stood out to me. A worn, large journal and a massive black feather, thick and strange. She had kept both on a little shelf above her bed. Besides that, the walls of her room were covered with bizarre symbols, written in chalk and ash. But most striking of all was a figure with wings and outstretched arms, apparently drawn in blood. I never saw any of this as a child. My knees trembled when the nurse told me that all the symbols and the figure had been hidden behind furniture and posters. I barely managed to sleep and woke up from the cold. The window was open, though I clearly remembered closing all the windows. There were claw marks on the windowsill. Everything inside me clenched. My breath caught, and for the first time, I began to consider my mother's words. When I lay on the bed, I couldn't sleep because of scratching noises in the guest room. They weren't rats. The sound was rhythmic and deliberate, like someone was carving something. I didn't sleep a wink until morning. The sounds and the smell of her clothes in the air transported me back to childhood, when I curled up terrified by a thunderstorm. Back then, she told me nothing would happen to me because my father would always be with me. I knew all the answers were in the journal. When I picked it up, it felt like it burned my hands, and yet I started reading. It began innocently enough. Notes about my birth, how she cried the first time she saw me, that my eyes reminded her of his. She never mentioned his name. Then things got much stranger. Somewhere between love letters to my father, praises of his divine beauty, and descriptions of strange and horrifying rituals on how to summon angels, he came to me again, said he would take our son despite saying before he wouldn't. He said he loves only me and I should ascend with him. The neighbors saw him, heard him in the attic. No one talks to me anymore. They know who fathered my child. He said he'll come for our son soon, that the time has come. How could he do this? He promised I would go instead of our son. The last entry read, "I won't let him take our son. I'll do everything to stop him." I slammed the journal shut, fighting back nausea. My hands trembled with fear. I dropped everything and left the house. That night, I dreamed of wings, not like the angel wings from Sunday school books, but huge and broken, with coal-like tips and golden roots. A distorted, wrong voice repeated my name. Michael. I woke to the sound of feathers sliding across the floor, but there were no feathers, only rising dust, and a smell like freshly cut grass and burning meat. The dreams continued, each time with more detail, not just wings now, but a tall, gaunt figure with outstretched arms. It was always still. Its eyes glowed in the dark, and its voice said my name like it belonged to him. Electrical malfunctions began. Objects moved by themselves. Deep claw marks appeared on the walls. The TV turned on to static at night, and blood would drip from my nose. I didn't know where to go or what to do, so I went to a priest. The old priest sat on a bench by the altar, bent over a prayer book. The moment I entered, he tensed, sensing I hadn't come to confess. "What brings you here, my son? I need an answer. I need to know what to do if my father is an angel." The priest flinched like I struck him. He closed the prayer book and stood, his knees cracking. He stared at me like he was trying to see into my soul. "Who told you that?" "My mother. He's been coming to me in dreams. I feel him watching me through mirrors. Wherever I go, I feel his gaze. I feel something changing inside me. I'm so scared, Father." He placed his hands on my shoulders. His hands were cold as grave stones. "The angel you describe is not a messenger of love. He is ancient, more terrifying. Some of them were rejected even by God. And if one of them is your father," he didn't finish, just stepped back and crossed himself. "You must reject him, renounce him, and never, ever summon or accept him. Don't look into his face if he appears. Such angels want to continue their lineage, and you will never be human again." In that moment, deep beneath my ribs, a thought stirred. Maybe I was never be a human. The dreams became reality. When I blinked, feathers floated in the air. I turned suddenly and saw his face behind the curtain, wide, frozen eyes staring. When I got the call that my mother died of cardiac arrest, a sharp mix of smells hit me. Burned feathers, meat, cinnamon, sulfur, and cut grass. He had been here. I heard my mother's voice. She sounded like she was laughing and crying at the same time. "Michael, my beloved son, he's so proud of you. Your father finally took me with him. Don't be afraid, son. He'll take you too, and we'll finally live as a family. You'll have a more important role. Don't fear, accept it. I love you. We love you." I vomited on my pants, paralyzed by terror. The smell didn't fade. It grew stronger. My first thought was that my father killed my mother and was trying to kill me too, using hallucinations. I tried to flee the house, but the TV turned on. The screen flickered, then static appeared, white noise, a chaotic swarm of dots. The static became rhythmic, like breathing, sometimes quiet, sometimes loud. Then the image changed. A silhouette emerged from the blur. At first, just an outline, then wings appeared just like in my dreams. Its head was tilted, face obscured by distorted light. It moved. From inside the TV, coming closer with each frame, the screen lines warped as if you were pushing out, tearing through space. I stepped back, my heart pounding. Then, through the crackle of static, a distorted, inhuman voice said, "You are ready." The screen convulsed, and from its center a hand emerged. Long, clawed fingers, shimmering with both blinding light and shadow. The hand reached for me. I couldn't scream or move. I was frozen as he fully emerged, like a nightmare being born. He only vaguely resembled a man. His face was mine, but twisted, terrifying, as the priest warned. He was corrupted by time and something unearthly. Tall and thin, wrapped in wings that shimmered like metal, his voice sounded like wind across a grave. "We are one family again, Michael." I passed out. I don't know how much time passed, hours, days maybe, but I woke up on the bathroom floor in a pool of my own blood. I coughed, spitting blood, and felt something pulsing under my skin. My blood was changing. When I looked in the mirror, my eyes no longer looked like mine, they were his. A few hours later, I felt excruciating pain in my back, like something trying to tear its way out. All food began to taste like ash. Later, I started hearing whispers of prayers in different languages from mirrors, pipes, and inside my own head, and always, I heard my father's voice. "Michael, you were born for ascension. I existed before the great flood. My ancient blood flows in you. You will have many tasks, but you will succeed because I am with you. Always." I no longer needed sleep. My back slowly tore open as black stubs of wings burst through the flesh. He came to me yesterday, showing burning skies and oceans of wings, a throne made of eyes. His voice sounded like a choir of thousands. He said he would teach me to walk between dimensions once the wings were fully grown. According to him, they will break free within 2 days. My skin peels and flakes like ash, and my teeth fall out, immediately replaced by sharper ones. I no longer feel pain. I stopped praying for it to stop whenever I prayed. My tongue burned to ash and regrew. I stopped being afraid. The fear vanished on its own when I felt the air bend around me. I accepted it. I see other angels now like my father. They welcome me into their ranks. My mother stands among them, crying with joy. Now, as I type this, I saw the future, where I shine with light like my father. I now stand in fire, and soon I will continue the bloodline. Amen. I was a highway patrolman for 20 years. This is one of my worst experiences. I was a highway patrolman for 20 years, and I've seen it all. High-speed chases, gunfights, near-death encounters. But nothing compares to what happened in the summer of 2018. It was the graveyard shift. The stillness of the night had a way of amplifying every sound, every shadow. Most nights were the usual mix of speeding drivers and DUI stops. That night started no differently. I was stationed at my usual spot near mile marker 62, radar gun in hand, coffee thermos perched on the dash. The radio buzzed with routine chatter. Then, just as I was finishing my second cup of coffee, dispatch chatted in. "Any available units near Route 18? We have a 10 to 90. I was confused. I'd never heard that code before. "Dispatch, this is Unit 504. "What's a 10 to 90? "Silence, dispatch. No response. Just static. Seconds later, Coordinates popped up on my patrol car's computer. It was an isolated patch off the highway, deep in the woods. Uneasy, I radioed my supervisor. "Hey, Sarge, dispatch just paged me about a 10 to 90. What's the protocol?" His response was curt. "Ignore it. It wasn't meant for you. Seriously, they gave me coordinates. Drop it 504. Get back to work." I hesitated, but orders were orders. The night dragged on with routine stops. Around 3 a.m., exhaustion hit, so I pulled into a donut shop. Yeah, I know the stereotype, but sometimes you just need the sugar rush. The shop was a dive, peeling paint, flickering neon sign, but it was open. Behind the counter stood a man so pale he looked like he'd been carved from marble. His fingers were unnaturally long, and he moved with a stiffness that gave me the creeps. "What'll it be?" His voice was raspy, like dead leaves rustling. "Just coffee and a couple of glazed." He slid my order across the counter without a word. His gaze lingered on me, unblinking, as if he were memorizing my face. "Long night?" he asked, his lips curling into a faint, unnatural smile. "Yeah, graveyard shift. Never gets easier." He chuckled, a low, guttural sound that made my skin crawl. "Be careful out there. You never know what might be lurking." I left in a hurry, the bell above the door jangling behind me. I was halfway to my car when the radio crackled again. "Help me." The voice was faint, distorted, but unmistakably human. I froze, my heart hammering. "Dispatch, this is Unit 504. Did someone just broadcast a distress call?" No response. I tried my supervisor. Nothing. Curiosity gnawed at me. Against my better judgment, I punched the coordinates into my GPS and set off. The drive took me 45 minutes, deep into the highway forest. The road narrowed until it was barely more than a dirt path. My headlights cut through the thick darkness, revealing gnarled trees that seemed to close in around me. When the GPS announced I'd arrived, I was in the middle of nowhere. I stepped out of the car, gun holstered, flashlight in hand. The silence was unnatural, not a single insect, not even the rustle of leaves. I radioed again. "Dispatch, this is 504. I'm at the coordinates. What's going on?" Static, I took a step forward. The ground was hard beneath my boots, but I couldn't hear my own footsteps. The air felt heavy, oppressive. Then, behind me, a twig snapped. I spun around, flashlight beams slicing through the darkness. Nothing. "Who's there?" I called, unholstering my gun. The radio crackled to life again. "Help me." The voice was deafening, as if it were screaming directly into my skull. I dropped the radio, clutching my ears. Before I could react, a heavy blow struck the back of my head, and everything went black. I woke up tied to a tree. My hands and feet were bound with rough rope, my head throbbing. The air reeked of damp earth and something metallic blood, maybe. 3 hooded figures stood before me, their faces obscured. They whispered among themselves, their voices low and guttural. One stepped forward. "Why did you come here?" I got a call. "A distress call," I stammered. "Why are you here?" the figure repeated more forcefully. "I was just doing my job. Look, killing me won't do any good. My team knows I'm out here. They'll come looking." They whispered among themselves again. Then one of them nodded. "Let him go," the leader said. Another figure stepped forward, cutting my bonds. My legs were weak, but I managed to stand. "Take your gun, leave, do not come back." I didn't need to be told twice. I grabbed my weapon and stumbled back toward my car. My head swam, and my limbs felt heavy, like I'd been drugged. As I made my way down the path, figures began emerging from the shadows. Dozens of them, their faces pale and featureless. "Don't come back," they chanted in unison. "Don't come back." I reached my car and sped out of there, not daring to look in the rearview mirror. The next morning, I reported everything to my supervisor. He dismissed it as exhaustion-induced hallucinations and put me on paid leave. But I know what I saw. Even now, years later, I can't shake the feeling that they're still watching me. I kept one of my radios as a memento of my time on the force. Sometimes, late at night, it crackles to life. "Help me," the voice whispers, and sometimes it calls my name. Tonight, I've made up my mind. I'm going back. I don't care what's waiting for me in those woods. I need answers. Wish me luck. If any of these stories got under your skin, let me know in the comments. And if you want more strange and unsettling stories, don't forget to subscribe. Until next time, stay curious and maybe keep a light on.